but I'm going to invite Heinrich to introduce himself again and say a bit about Hands Off Venezuela, and then we'll have a chance to think about what we're up against.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you. It's an honor to be here in this meeting. I'm running, as I said before already, this small anti-war cafe in downtown Berlin, and I had the chance to meet many activists in the peace movement here in Germany and worldwide. In the 15 years I run the place, and we have many tourists, locals, and art and music community in the place. And to go together over the years, I organized many exhibitions, art shows, jam sessions, readings, and also some petitions online, and always also some outdoor protests and events. And what I would like to talk today about is the two projects I'm participating in. One is Hands Off Venezuela. We also call it recently Frente Unido America Latina. We started in February of 2019 when Juan Guaido managed to get proclaimed by Western countries, including the German government, the so-called legitimate president of Venezuela. Mm. And then we decided to do something and organize. And we started a weekly vigil event in front of the US Embassy in the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. It's a landmark in Berlin where many tourists come. And with a very few breaks, we have been out there almost all Saturdays over these 2 years. And we started also to broaden our campaign to focus on all progressive movements in Latin America. And we have actively participating people from Mexico, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Chile, Cuba, Venezuela, and quite a few Germans. We always have several speakers every weekend at the event. And altogether, it's an interesting, not too large event, okay, but it's attracting tourists. They take pictures. We have activists passing by. We meet people. We hand out flyers, and we document all the things on a video portal that I run from the cafe. It's called Anti-War TV, antikriegTV. You can find it on YouTube. And I think it's also, this movement is also like giving some hope in this time of all this turmoil and confusion, because I think in Cuba, things are still holding. Venezuela has politically stabilized somewhat. President Maduro has won the last elections. Guaido has been now dropped even by the European Union and the German government just last week. Yesterday, actually, they said he's not anymore our prime candidate. They might come up with some other guy, but at least they still don't acknowledge the Maduro government. They demand fair elections in Venezuela. But still, Guaido is out. Bolivia has shown that miracles are sometimes possible, because we have a new left government there again. And there were elections in Argentina that went out right. In Mexico, we have a good president now. And they together saved the life of Morales after the coup d'etat. Chile has also a full year of very heavy protests that on the way to the referendum for a new constitution had some success. And now we have the elections coming up in Ecuador, and that might be positive too, we all hope. Nicaragua, there's an election coming up. So Brazil is there. We also have Brazilian activists sometimes participating. So altogether, I think it's getting a little bit more hopeful and positive in Latin America. Also, since Bolivia got back on its feet, it's now that the ALBA movement, the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, is reinstituted again. And I think it's very important to realize for the movement that and for all people on the left, that the non-aligned nations movement is very strong and also in support of the Latin American progressive governments. And I think this could have been best witnessed when this event happened at the UN headquarters in New York in February of 2019, when 17 representatives of countries stepped up together with the Venezuelan Foreign Minister Arriaza to call for the rescue of the Charter of the United Nations and to counter the illegal sanctions against Venezuela, and therefore announcing the formation of a coalition with the goal to defend the peace and sovereignty of all targeted countries and the United Nations Charter. And then a few months later, in July of 19, Venezuela hosted the annual event for the non-aligned movement, adopting the Caracas Declaration, which reaffirmed this statement from the press conference in February once again. And you had the foreign ministers from Iran, Cuba, Bolivia, Nicaragua, Palestine attending the meeting in Venezuela, as well as the deputy foreign minister of Russia, including representatives from most other member states of that movement. And in his opening speech, Venezuela's foreign minister appealed to strengthen multilateralism, promoting the right to peace and the right to decide for the future of peoples without external pressure. And he said Venezuela, as well as Cuba, Iran, Syria, Nicaragua, and North Korea are victims of interventionism by foreign powers who insist on regime change and a change of government. And then also there was a speech by the UN General Assembly President Maria Fernanda Espinosa, who said in a video transmitted speech that the NAM, the Non-Aligned Nations Movement, and the UN General Assembly have to respond to major challenges together, like fighting poverty, reducing inequality, and protecting the environment, and ensuring that this regime change policy stops. And in essence, that is also what our coalition here in Berlin, Frente Unido America Latina, is standing for. And I think we should understand that this is very important for all progressive and left movements to understand that anyone who criticizes this policy of the West and this aggression of the West and all these sanctions, who is committed to worldwide cooperation instead of confrontation, represents the interests of the majority of mankind. And criticism of some aspects of the politics of individual states is of course necessary, but should not detract from the positive and importance of this alliance. And I think this is also very important, that the progressive movements are no longer supported only by independent and progressive media platforms, but also by influential media networks of Russia, of China, of Latin America, like Russia Today, Sputnik News, New China TV, and Telesur. And I think this way, the progressive movements and the anti-war movements can be heard increasingly also worldwide on these channels. And the last thing I would like to mention is a campaign that also we just started here in Berlin. It's called Nukes Are Now Illegal. Now out of Germany, out of Belgium, out of the Netherlands, out of Italy, and out of Turkey, because those are the places where the NATO, especially the US, is storing their nuclear weapons in Europe. There are more than 120 bombs, at least we know of, in these 5 countries in Europe alone. And we started this campaign in cooperation with Roger Waters from Pink Floyd and World Beyond War and a few other organizations based here in Germany, and also bringing attention to this treaty we just heard before, the UN Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. We have rented large billboards here in Berlin that will start being up on February 2nd for the first time for 2 weeks. And we have also just started a paid ads campaign for social media. Roger Water has supported this campaign with a large donation, and also by World Beyond War, which I represent here at my cafe in Berlin. And a few other groups also support and donate as well. And I think it's also very important to note that Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Bolivia have all signed and ratified the treaty. And a lot of the other countries participating in this very good campaign are the countries that are represented also in the Non-Aligned Nations Alliance. Nuclear weapons threaten our security, and we now demand that Germany is supporting this UN treaty and signing it. And that is about what I have to say today. And I also would like maybe to mention this, we have a daily newspaper here that is also very supportive of the Venezuela solidarity movement. It's the Junge Welt. It's basically the only left daily newspaper in Berlin, actually in Germany. And they are organizing events for Venezuela. Like last year, there was a conference at one big event place here in Berlin, the Urania. More than 750 people showed up. The vice foreign minister of Venezuela, Juan Gil, was speaking, and Carlos Wimmer, and some other people. And they also organized a campaign. It's called Unblock Cuba. And we have some German politicians also in the left party, 2 members of parliament who are very active, and they also sometimes come to our place and speak there. And altogether, I think it's promising that we have quite a few groups who are organizing and trying to bring more dynamics to this whole thing to stop this illegal and criminal policy of NATO countries, and especially the US. And hopefully we are working towards a good goal. And thanks again for being here and letting me present this campaign we are doing here. Thank you.
Surely, Heinrich.
I would like to suggest that it's very important to understand that the aggression is basically coming from the West, you know. I think that Russia and China are being demonized in an unbelievable way. You know, they were always, since the Manhattan Project, since the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they were always also in the crosshairs of US nuclear policy. There were always plans being drawn up to destroy many cities in the Soviet Union, many cities in China. So I think we have to find some understanding that these countries cannot just lay down their arms and sign the contract and being full of trust about their counterparts not doing this really. So I think that is the utmost importance, to find a consensus on stopping to demonize these countries. For example, there's now like a unbelievable campaign running against Russia on the footing of this Navalny poisoning case. Here in Germany, it's like all over the media. On top of that, you have this Chinese demonization against China on this, the suppression of this concentration camps, this forced labor, and what they talk about there in Xinjiang. I think it's so much propaganda out there. And that is why I always try to stress the the point that it's important to understand that the non-aligned nations movement is in solidarity, for example, with Venezuela, with Cuba, with Syria, with Iran, with all these countries, although these countries are not perfect. I'm also not perfect, but at least we can sitting here together and we can understand that we are on the same level. We don't want to do harm to each other, you know, but if you have people in the room who really want to do something bad to you, then you have to find out who they are. And I think in that sense, you have to accept the fact that Russia and China are supporting these countries, that Iran is also in there, and that we have to, from that step on, kind of try to work something out in order to de-escalate the tension and to stand up against this demonization that is going on against so many countries for so many reasons that are really all double standard and kind of not real, I think. But wouldn't it be, for starters, like an idea to understand that this non-aligned nations movement is consisting of 120 countries. They're all UN member states. They make up the majority of the world population. They are supported on top of it by China and Russia. China is, by the way, also supporting this treaty, the UN treaty, in general, saying they would like to come into place and they would be welcoming destroying all their nuclear arms, but they're talking about the danger of this escalating world geopolitical situation. So if we see the fact that, I think we have to look up to this diplomacy in a way. If you see the foreign ministers of so many countries coming together and saying we are standing in solidarity, whatever issues we have on certain topics, still we are working together. You are like capitalist and you are like doing this and that, but still we need to work together. We need to go forward to peace and to prosperity and to development of our nations. And I think this is happening in this movement, that is the bloc that was founded in '61 by Nehru, Suharto, Nasser, and some other guys. And I think that this movement is saying the right things, you know, and it's countering it. It's in defense against the bloc of nations that is maybe 40 states the most, who are like extremely aggressive. They're demonizing them on every point in turn, sanctioning them and threatening them. So I think that is, the movement has to understand what this is about and support these guys. Criticize them at the same time, but also supporting them in general. And that is not taking place. For example, in Germany now, especially with the Corona crisis, we have a big division in the peace movement. There are a lot of guys who are tending to work together even with right-leaning groups because of these ideas of a new world order, and the Chinese are behind all this, and they released the coronavirus somewhere from a biolab in Wuhan. It's madness. You have a lot of people who are anti-Putin just because they feel they almost need to be, because it's such a climate of hate about this that even the left guys kind of join in. Nobody's daring to speak up in a way. So that is also, I think in the US, it's also very, very much that way, what I hear about at least. So that's what I, for example, like about the Latin American movements, because they're all on the left. They understand they're in big trouble. If Russia and China don't support them, they're gone. I mean, Bolivia would be gone. Venezuela would be gone if Iran and China are not supporting them. So that is why they holding hands and are in solidarity. And there's some reason for it. And I think it makes sense in a way. Still, you can criticize them. But I think there's a valid understanding there that it's necessary to stand together and to show solidarity to each other. But maybe check out this article I just posted there in the chat box. That's an article I wrote like 2 years ago about this movement, because actually it's not very much in the mainstream media. They never talk about it. It's always this, I mean, Russia Today and the Chinese, they're always stressing it in a way. And I think it really also, it is connected with the nuclear treaty now too, because the majority of the states who signed this treaty are actually from that movement, because they don't want this trouble. They're fed up with these threats and sanctions and the whole policy, that they want a different direction, even having their flaws and their mistakes, you know. But I think one has to measure these qualities of countries and of people too in a way. Nobody is 100% perfect and nobody is 100% bad. I mean, some people are, but there's always some scale where you can have them standing on the good side, even with some mistakes. And I think it's the majority. And it's really interesting to read how this group developed over the years, and especially that the fact that the Russian and the Chinese are always supporting them. And also in the US, you have certain websites like Popular Resistance, the Venezuelan Solidarity Movement. They're also always, the US Peace Council, they always tend to link to them and meeting also representatives from them. So I think it's not, I think it's a really good idea to look into it and maybe find some connection, because I think they also got the media. I mean, they got the Telesur, they got the New China TV, the Chinese TV, they got the Russia Today, RT America, for example. I think it's a very good channel. And that is where we can find some. And Peter also, he was giving an interview to Sputnik today, you know, they're on press TV, on the Iranian TV. It's nothing that is like poison. It's like possible to go there and to speak your mind. They don't censor you. And then you have like other channels, for example, Amy Goodman. I also like her channel very much, but she is, for example, also sometimes very strange about what is happening in Venezuela and in Syria and in Iran. She's very strange sometimes there, you know. I don't know why, maybe for personal feelings, but I think the media is, this state media is actually a platform we should really look for, at least not demonizing it. I would just maybe like to add one thought. If you could maybe support this nuclear statement we do here in Berlin with the COVID-19 solidarity group, we would very much appreciate if we could have this on the website as well. Maybe take a look at the website. There's a lot of groups supporting it. And I very much appreciate this group here because, as I told you, we have a lot of problems here in Germany with this COVID situation. And a lot of people, including myself, are pretty much confused about it.
Yes, I am too. Yeah.
And but it's like causing a lot of division, and a lot of groups break up and have conflicts.
Yeah.
It's like families, and it's like crazy. So
that's true.
That's why I'm very happy to have found this group here, because you have like a good compass about these problems.
Well, send what you have to either myself or to the group as a whole.
All right.
And send it to the group as a whole, and I will push. I will push getting this done.